An all-new episode of The Mitch, Lafon, and Jeremy White Show.
Tuesday at noon.
Available wherever you stream.
We are speaking with a guitarist, Atomik Tommy M. I said N. I meant M. Let's try that again. On 3, 2, 1. We are speaking with Atomik Tommy M, a guitarist and also known as Tommy McClendon, as we say here in Montreal. Bonjour, Tommy. Comment allez-vous? How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing up there in Canada?
Good, good. So before we start talking about UFO and Soul Motor with Brian Wheat and all that wonderful stuff, what are you currently up to? I mean, can fans be expecting anything? Is there something that we can check out new from you soon?
Well, let's see. I actually have working on a project of my own. It's actually called Thunderwing, Atomik Tommy's Thunderwing, which was the name of the band is actually a band name that I had a long time ago with my brother. And we kind of had different incarnations of that band with different number of people and so forth. For the longest time, it was a trio. And then after that, it was a 4-piece band. But I've been kind of like just resurrecting that. And a couple of years ago, I actually released 2 songs that I had rewritten that I wrote back in 1978 and 1979. So basically, I'm keeping that project alive and just kind of rehashing some of the old songs and rewriting them and adding new ones. So that's the process. So just kind of amassing as many songs as I can with that.
And is that an album that you're trying to put together and have out like this year? Or is it something that we'll see maybe 2 years from now, 3 years? Like,
yeah, a couple of years because an album's worth, So instead, I actually just release individual songs like singles or whatever you want to call it, just songs.
And are you releasing them under that band name? Are you releasing them under Atomik Tommy, or are you using your name? What are you releasing them under?
It's Atomik Tommy's Thunderwing.
Okay,
as
perfect.
a tribute to the band name with that originated with me and my brother back in whatever year it was, 72. Yeah,
long time ago. All right.
Yeah, when we were just like, I was still a teenager. And then when we had our band, our trio band, and we actually moved to the Northwest, and we played around there for a few years.
Let me quickly ask you about your work with UFO. What was that like coming into the band? Because obviously you come in after Schenker, after Chapman, there's the Phil sort of resurrects the band. What was those moments like? Was there a lot of pressure? Was there a lot of like, hey, you got to sound like Michael? Or hey, how was that whole situation approached for you?
Just let me fix something went wrong here.
Yeah, I can't see you.
Yeah. Where the heck did okay.
Should be a little button that says camera.
Is that it?
There we go. You're back.
I have this big white text thing in the middle of the picture. It says this meeting is being recorded by the host of a participant.
Oh, there should be a little button that you can click on that where you say got it. It should say got it and you just click on it.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Oh. Well, listen, I'm not that pretty to look at anyway. So
okay, sorry. So what was the question about UFO, so Michael Schenker, etc.?
Yeah, so let me just restate the question so for editing purposes here.
Okay.
You, of course, are known, to me at least, for being on the Misdemeanor UFO album. And of course, you're coming in after Michael Schenker, after Paul Chapman. What was that like for you? Did Phil sort of say, hey, I need you to play like these guys? Did he sort of let you establish your own sound? What was that like?
Yeah, there was never any kind of approach of that type of like trying to fill someone else's shoes or their musical style. I think at the time, Phil Mogg wanted to really start a new project with a new band. And so I think he chose me because I was a songwriter as well as, a guitarist. So basically he was looking for someone to write the songs with and create a sound that he had heard in his head or something, just something different. I think he just wanted to do something different. So there was never any thought about, trying to make it sound like Paul or Michael as a guitarist. It was just a process of just, let's see what we can do kind of thing.
Was Misdemeanor meant to be a Phil Mogg solo record, and then the record company said, hey, no, we got to put the brand, because, Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi with Seventh Star, the record company sort of said, hey, you got to use the brand name. Was that what was going on here?
No, to my knowledge, it was never a solo album. It was just a new band.
Okay.
Yeah. And what happened was, because we were started pitching the band to the record labels for a record contract, that's when the label wars kind of started. So it was like, well, if we go out and tour before we get the record deal, then we can prove to the labels that we're a good band, etc. And so I think it came to the fact that, well, we were going to have a different band name, but maybe it made more logical sense for Phil to keep the name UFO. See, I guess.
Yeah, which makes sense. Now,
yeah.
This is going to sound strange for UFO fans, but Misdemeanor is one of my favorite UFO albums. I absolutely love it. I think Night Run, This Time, it's just a great pop record. And I know that UFO fans don't want pop records. They want whatever, classic rock record. Talk to me a little bit about the sound and some of the hate that it's gotten, because overall, it's a fun record.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for digging the record. I think when we made the album, we kind of got the band members together.
Yeah.
We weren't exactly sure, right away what we wanted to do with the sound. We kind of developed it as we went. And I know it's because I myself was a big UFO fan. I always would have been, especially Michael Schenker. And I think as we wrote the songs, we just wanted to be creative with the music. So we didn't try to see any boundaries. We didn't try to make it pop for a pop reason.
Right.
We kept it whatever we felt like we wanted to do.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about the production in that, because there is a lot of sort of electronic drums. There's all kinds of, 80s sounding elements. Who came up with? Was that Nick Tauber who said, "Hey, let's try this"? Was it Phil? Was it you? Because it does sound dated now. You listen to it and you go, yeah, that's the 80s. But yeah, I'm a child of the 80s, so I love it. Talking about those production
sound, the gated drum.
Yeah.
The way some of the background vocals kind of come in and out.
Oh, they're layered and stuff. Yeah, and the keyboards. It's 1985. It's absolutely a 1985 record. You can hear it. But I love that stuff. I mean, give me Phil Collins, give me Huey Lewis, give me Bryan Adams. I'm in. So talk to me about those elements, though, because it really was reinventing the band's sound. It wasn't like dirty rock and roll. It was slick radio music.
Yeah. To me, it's a combination of both things, because we always knew that live, as the core of the songs, was always going to be straightforward and rock. But it came off a little slicker on the record. Not as powerful as we wanted, and we all felt that way. We knew there was a difference. Yeah.
Do you hate the record then? Are you disappointed with it? Do you think maybe it should have been done differently?
Yeah, I'm slightly disappointed. I wish it could be remixed, because I think that would make a big difference. Stripping away the effects off the drums, especially the overuse of say reverbs.
Right.
On instruments, balancing the guitars a little bit hotter into the mix.
Really?
Yeah, I think it could benefit from that.
Well, let me ask you then. Nick Tauber, who produced it, obviously didn't mix it, but produced it, worked with Marillion, Thin Lizzy, and some of these other bands. Do you think he just didn't do a good job? Did he not give you the record you wanted?
No, I don't want to blame Nick on
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was a combination of trying to make a record that had a lot of appeal to like a wider audience, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
because of the musical tastes on radio and things like that. We're kind of changing.
Yeah, well, listen, I will defend the song "Night Run" till my death. In terms of your guitar playing, what was some of the rigs and what was some of the gear that you used on this one?
What did I use?
Yeah,
Yeah, basically my basic setup was really just 100-watt Marshall, one or
right.
two, depending on if it was like live or recorded. And my SG, my modified SG, my modified Strat, and really just let's see, what did I use? A Roland delay unit for the wet sounds, and just a tube screamer for for the solos. That was it. It's pretty
See,
straightforward.
and this is where we need my co-host Jeremy because he knows all this gear talk. I'm very sort of trepidatious on the whole thing. After that, you get into "Ain't Misbehaving," sort of an EP for the lack of a better word. Talk to me quickly about that one because recently, or in the last few years, the band has remastered everything and they've re-released everything, but they left "Ain't Misbehaving" off of that re-release schedule, and it's never been remastered, at least not to my knowledge.
Right.
Um, Talk to me about that one. Was that just sort of going to be a continuation of Misdemeanor, or was that supposed to be a whole new project?
Well, I when we came off the US tour in 80, 86, 85, um, we started writing more material, but this time we didn't have a keyboard player in the band. So there was more focus on just getting the guitars, more just writing off the guitars. Paul Gray had a couple of keyboard songs that he wrote on keyboard, and we included those. And we just started just writing to keep the continuity going. And I think we just needed to present more material to the record label, right, to Chrysalis, to keep it pushing along. And then they basically turned it down. So we were just basically doing more demoing. You know, we recorded the songs in Birmingham.
You were introduced to the band, if I'm not mistaken, through Mike Varney,
Yeah,
and of
but
course,
to
yes.
Phil Monk,
So
introduced to Phil Monk. Yeah,
by Mike,
yeah. So remember, there was no band at this point
correct,
in 1984.
right?
It was just Phil.
Okay, so right. I see what you mean. Okay, just talk to me a little bit about Mike Varney because he has given the world, or not given the world, he's introduced, Jason Becker and Joe Satriani. I mean, he really understands what a guitarist is, and he if he picks you, that means you're good. I mean, it's that simple. Talk to me about the relationship between you and Mike Varney, and what that means that he said to Phil, you need this guy.
I don't know. I after I was in Guitar Player magazine in the Spotlight column, in
Mm-hmm.
Mike's Spotlight column, I think one time he just gave me a call and said, "Hey, I think I have someone that you might fit with." So I went and auditioned for Phil, and I basically gave Phil the rest of my demo songs that I was writing and playing on, and basically I just took it from there and auditioned for Phil.
Well, what's an audition for Phil like? Because, as you know, Phil doesn't do interviews. You never get to talk to him. You never get to hear his story, which is frustrating. As a rock reporter, it's frustrating. What
Yeah.
was that like? Do you come in and have to play Doctor Doctor, and then he says, "Hey, I like you. Okay, let's go," or is it a little more complicated, or is it just, "Oh, you look like a good guy. All right, come on in."
You know what? What happened was um, there was a few of us guitarists that got together for that day,
Right.
and we each all learned like maybe about 4 or 5 UFO tunes, and we went to a warehouse rehearsal place, and just played for Phil. And there was a drummer and a bass player, and just played the songs. And
so an
and there
open
was some
casting call,
jamming.
basically, an open audition, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. Do
I,
you
I,
remember anybody else that was standing in line with you? I mean, was Joe Satriani behind you going, all right, it's my turn?
no,
No.
no. There was one fella named Greg. I forget his last name. Really a great guy. He actually had moved to Los Angeles and started doing solo work. Sorry, not solo work, studio work.
Studio.
But I don't know Greg's last name, but he was a great guy, and he had a completely different style from me. So it was really kind of cool that I thought, hey, maybe Phil could have two guitarists, make like a Thin Lizzy kind of approach, you know.
Right.
But eventually, he just wanted a single guitarist.
So how much time after the audition do you know when you get the gig? I mean, does Phil call you and say you're in, or does you start playing and go, oh, all right, that's the sound. Close the auditions. He's my guy.
Well, after the initial audition, I went to LA and stayed with Phil for a week.
Okay.
And basically, I thought we'd be writing some more songs together, or starting writing songs together.
Right.
But then, no, we just kind of hung out for a week. So, and then Phil went back to England to sort out details with management, etc. So the point was for me to move there so we could get the project going.
Right.
So we didn't really call it UFO. We didn't call it anything in particular. It was just going to be this new band. See?
Wow. And when you end up touring and you're going out there and you're playing Rock Bottom and Doctor Doctor and Lights Out, talk to me about that, because you were a fan, as you said.
Yeah.
Do you say to Phil, or does Phil say to you, listen, this is what Schenker did, go learn it note for note, or does he say, have at it, Tomify them?
It was like, yeah, it's like free reign, kind of do what you like.
Wow.
A lot of confidence in me, which I really, really, really appreciated. You know, it was meant a lot to me. But personally, when I would be playing, I always would think about Michael. I would think about Paul, and I didn't know Mick Bolton, and so I didn't know what to think there.
Right.
But but you know, it was important to me to play the classic tunes the best way I could play them, that I could at the time. You know what I mean?
Right. Was there a fear or a trepidation? Because fans, as soon as you step on that stage, are gonna start comparing you. You know it.
Right. It happens to everyone in my types of situations.
Any replacement is going to be, oh, you're not the old guy. You're not the guy we love. Was that
Right.
difficult? Did you just sort of push that out of your mind and say, listen, you're coming to a UFO show. You're going to hear the UFO songs, and that's the best I can do.
I think at the same time as that, what you just said, it's like when we're on stage, we got each other's backs.
Right.
So no matter what, we're going to push forward, and emotionally and musically, we're just going to do it. And if it works and people love it, then we know we succeeded. And I think a lot of times with the live concerts, I think basically we did win them over. And I take that as a team effort.
Yeah, so do I. You've won me over with Misdemeanor. After UFO, you sort of, I don't want to say fell out of the scene, but you weren't very productive in terms of getting into new bands and making new albums. And then eventually you get to Brian Wheat of Tesla, who has a new band called Soul Motor when Tesla was on a hiatus, for the lack of a better word. Talk to me about hooking up with Brian Wheat and Soul Motor, because the record that was put out is fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah. What was I doing then? I was basically looking for auditions again to play with different players. Before I moved back to the States, I actually was working with Clive Burr for a short while. We were writing songs together in his basement, and we were trying to form a band. So we were looking for a guitarist. sorry, a bassist,
A bassist.
and a vocalist to round out the band, because we did have kind of like a working production deal that we had kind of going.
Right.
So we tried to form a band, but that didn't just work out very well. So I eventually came back to the States. And from there, again, I kept writing my own material and thinking, okay, I'll just work solo again and just keep working on stuff. And what happened next was, I think it was Brian. Well, I had other bands, of course. There was like local bands in the Bay Area. One called Soul Dog. We did some recording with Eric Valentine. And then we, that group broke up. Right. So basically I was hanging out one day and Brian gave me a call, because I'd known Brian for a long time. So Brian gave me a call and said, hey, well, Frank Hannon just quit Soul Motor, because he was working with that group as well.
Right.
But he quit to do Moondog Maine. So I said, yeah, I'll step in and see, how this works out. So I went up and we started writing songs right away. And that's how that came about. So
let me ask you this then. After being in UFO and you've done those tours and you work with Phil, did the phone not ring? Did you not get bands calling you and saying, hey, we heard you're available, come and join us? What happened where you didn't really do anything afterwards?
Yeah, there was a couple calls. I just didn't feel they were right at the time.
Oh, so who was calling? Was it like flock of seagulls calling? Like
No. One was Saxon, actually. And then I did audition for David Lee Roth. And yeah, I went to his house. So
well, back up the truck. You auditioned for David Lee Roth.
What's that?
I said back up the truck here. You auditioned for David Lee Roth. So are we talking the Eat 'em and no? It can't be Eat 'em and Smile, because
it was after Steve Vai had left.
What came after that? The one where he's hanging on the. You just not living in Paradise, just like Whatever. But so I'm pulling a blank on it.
It was the third or fourth record, but all the songs had already been written.
Okay. And what was that like? I mean, working with Phil is one thing, but what's it like auditioning for David Lee Roth? Is he there checking you out, seeing what you're doing? Or does he just send down like a team of people, go, all right, go find me a guitarist and I'll let me know when you're done? How does that work?
No, he was there. He was definitely there. And so we all played in the basement, me and Greg Bisonet. And
oh, wow.
Because he has a studio down there.
Oh, wow. And of course, they didn't pick you. But so what happened at that audition? What songs were you playing? Were you rehearsing Van Halen stuff? Were you rehearsing just Eat 'em and Smile stuff? Or what were you?
Yeah, a combination, a couple of Van Halen tunes and a couple of David Lee Roth tunes.
Talk to me about the intricacies of trying to imitate Eddie Van Halen, because poor you. First you have to imitate Michael Schenker, and then not imitate, but you gotta follow the footsteps of Michael Schenker, and then you gotta follow in the footsteps of Eddie Van Halen. I mean, my Lord, could they make it any more difficult?
Yeah, two guitarists that I absolutely adored, and yeah, it was difficult, but at the same time, it just keeps you on your toes. It keeps you playing. It keeps you really thinking about what you're doing as a musician and a guitarist. And so I can cover this. I can handle that,
God,
but the main thing always is a guitar player is you got to have the feel. You got to put the feel into that, no matter what the style is, if it's someone else's chops or whatever, it's all about the feel.
Since you've had a chance to play the songs of both those gentlemen, talk to me a little bit about it in terms of when you've had to study and play a Michael Schenker riff. And so, is it easy? Is it difficult? Talk to me about, because he really is unique. His fingers are unique. His sound is unique.
Yeah, it is. difficult. It's a challenge, like trying to play like anyone's other style, whether it's Michael or Eddie, or let's say Al Di Meola or John McLaughlin, or even like you take like old chops from the 40s and like Django Reinhardt and folks like that. Everything's a challenge, but that's what makes the musician and the guitarist just push forward and like try to like cop that the vibe and everything. The vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, everybody who understands rock will say to you that Eddie Van Halen's a genius. So as you're learning those songs and you're learning those parts, do you feel that sense of genius and go, man, that's good? How do you think of that?
Oh yeah, but when you figure it out, even going back a decade or two where we didn't have YouTube to figure out songs out, and someone else didn't always do it for you, it did make you work harder at it and use your ears constantly, and then I think it all goes back to when I was a teenager, or even like 13, 14 years old growing up. I always made a point when I went to see a band play that I had to get up close to the stage so I can watch the musicians play. That was really important to me. And I would do that often. Like I'd go to the Fillmore or Winterland, or even just local shows, and just like stare at the guys like, well, how are they doing that song? How is Peter Frampton playing this part? Just as you grow with that, it just becomes part of how you hear the music.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. So, but just before we wrap up, where can we hear you next? I mean, we talked at the beginning that you've got these songs and a project coming out, but is there anything else other than the project? Are you going to be on a TV commercial or in a movie or a soundtrack? Or where can we hear you next? Or are we just waiting for this collection of songs?
Yeah, waiting for the collection. Okay. I'll play live here and there, different projects.
Okay.
Maybe the newer Soul Motor stuff will eventually be finished this year. I can't promise that.
Are you still working with Brian?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought Brian was all full steam ahead Teslas. Okay, quickly then.
Yeah, when he has the side project time, he works on it. He mixes it. We actually rewrote and re-recorded quite a few of the songs from the first and second albums.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. And so by re-recording them and all that, I'm assuming you're updating the sound, you're updating the arrangements, you're just making it 2022.
Yeah, I don't know about 2022, but I would say 2023. Okay. I think maybe just pushing it forward to keep the songs alive and available, and just bring them, if it's up to date in that respect, yeah. But some of them still have the same song arrangements. They just sound a little bit fuller and bigger. So if that's what you mean by 2022, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what. Yeah. Okay. So production wise, okay. So good. Yeah. That's great. And I will leave you on this. I'll just quickly go back to Misdemeanor, and I personally don't understand the hate that it gets from fans. I love it, and I've told you that about 8 times now. Ultimately, what's your last word on it in terms of feeling and I'm looking at it. I mean, Heaven's Gate, Reckless, This Time, oh, it's great. It's in my phone at all times. I'm not even kidding.
Well, thank you. I think we wrote those songs together as a band.
Right.
And that's the most important thing to me. When you hear the vocal, that's Phil. The lyrics, that's Phil. There's no mistaking in that. This is where he was at the time in 84, 85, 86, doing that. And he put his heart and soul into it, and we all did. And it should be part of the catalog, regardless of what anyone thinks. It should always be there. Tonally speaking, if someone says, "Oh, that's not the right sound," etc., okay, maybe it's not, but it was a stepping stone to keep the band alive.
Right. Well, and you see, that's what bothers me. People don't say it's the same sound, because then you get another band that does the same sound every album, and the same critic will come out and say, "Oh man, they never grow. They always do the same thing." And it's like, well, they do something different, you crucify them. They do the same thing, you crucify them. So what are they supposed to do? I mean, come on. And,
yeah, we're all fans. I mean,
right.
we all may be guilty of doing that to our favorite groups as well, right?
What group have you done that to? Who have you complained about? What's your favorite group that you've crucified?
Personally, I can't think of anything right now, and honestly I can't think of anything right now. Yeah. But I have friends. I have friends in the Van Halen camps, right? Two different Van Halen camps, and it's just like, what the? Doesn't matter. It's like Eddie. It's always Ed. It's always Ed. That's Alex. Yeah. That's what it's important to me. Yeah. And
I'll tell you that for me, I like that fans, or not fans, that bands do something different. There are other albums that get a lot of hate, which is Scorpions' Eye to Eye and Def Leppard Slang. And I'm just like, you know what? They needed to do something different. They had to break out of the mold, because in 96 and in 99, they could not have made the same album. And so, 15 years into UFO, they couldn't repeat what they had done before. It just wouldn't have made sense to do Rock Bottom Part 2. It just wouldn't have. So,
yeah, because then if it was Rock Bottom Part 2, it would only be compared to Rock Bottom Part 1.
Right.
So there was no point to that.
I agree.
And essentially, there's no point in me just sitting there and trying to play like Michael, for example, because then it's just comparisons to Michael. It's best that each guitarist stands on their own 2 feet and their own styles. Now, I find myself quite versatile as a musician, because I play keyboards, guitars, violins. I do all that stuff. So I have a certain approach to music that I always bring to what I play. So to me, the bottom line is to keep it very musical.
Yeah.
That's,
by the way, I just noticed that you actually wrote Night Run. That's fantastic. I love that song. It's a great thing. And let me end on this. Obviously the band moved on and reformed and eventually brought Michael back. Was your departure just, hey, listen, this has run its course and we need to seek greener pastures? Or was it fired? Was there was it acrimonious? Or was it like, hey, listen, I just, did Phil just say, listen, I got to move on. I'm sorry. Do you still talk to Phil? Was it an okay relationship at the way it ended?
Yeah, he lived in Birmingham. He had a house there. So I'd go visit him and stuff. Even when I started working with Clyde Burr, I'd go visit Phil. Phil started working with his nephew Nigel, with the choir boys, and stuff like that. So we see each other.
Okay, so you're still friendly with Phil.
Oh yeah,
one of the greatest vocalists ever, and someday somebody's going to have to convince him to do another interview. Did he ever mention why he doesn't do interviews? Did he just say, meh, F it, I don't do this nonsense? Did he ever say it?
No, not to me. No.
I've always been curious as to why he won't speak. But hey, listen, he gave us 50 years of great music, so I ain't complaining.
Yeah.
Anyway, as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. It was fun to talk to you and talk to somebody who was on those 2 albums, because I'll say it for the 10th time, I love them. Love those albums.
Thanks, Mitch. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome.
An all-new episode of The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Tuesday at noon.
Available wherever you stream.